radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening. How you doing? Fade to Black. Today is Tuesday, July 1st, 2025. Let's do this, man. Did I say I'm your host, Jimmy Church? Of course I did. This week on Fade to Black, last night we did our Peru and Bolivia recap show. I just got back. Tonight, Ron Meyer is with us. We're going to be talking about Jesus had an NDE. That and much more tonight. Tomorrow night, Lance Hightower is here, dog man in the U.S. of A. Then Thursday night, Eric Wargo joins us. We're going to be talking about precognition, dreams, time travel, connection to UFOs, all of that and much more on Thursday night. Now, I have just one major event coming up. It's at the end of this month. It is the Psy Games, August 1st through the 3rd, 2025 in Charlottesville, Virginia. I am a game show host for the Psychic Olympics out there in Virginia. The links for that are below. You can check out everybody that is speaking, the games, the competition, and the full schedule, and of course, tickets right there in Charlottesville, Virginia. All right. Well, I'm going to start off with this tonight. I have had my own NDE experiences happened to me when I was 20 years old. I've talked about it many times over the years on this very program. And because of that and my experiences and what I went through, my interest in this subject is complete. It is never ending. I look at when I say complete, I look at every angle and every aspect. As you know, I have interviewed so many experiencers around the subject of NDEs and have compared their experience and stories with my own and connecting the dots. Not everything is the same, and I don't believe that everybody's NDE is the same. But there are a lot of similarities. This conversation tonight with Ron Meyer is going to do all of that. And I hope to get into the deep philosophical and existential sides of NDEs and what is going on. The show tonight is called Jesus Had an NDE. Yeah, which means we can just about go wherever we need to go. We are going to do that tonight. I'm very excited about this conversation because consciousness, of course, we've got faith, we've got technology, we've got artificial intelligence. Everything will roll into this tonight. Ron is a peer-reviewed scientist with the mind of a philosopher and the heart of a mystic. We're going to be doing all of that tonight. I'm very excited. His links are below. Also, in our chat, I've got the links up and the moderators to 3 of Ron's films. They are there. You can check those out. And we will, again, post those links throughout the show tonight. I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Ron Meyer, and he's right there from Boulder, Colorado. Ron, good evening, young man. How you doing?
I'm not the young man. You're the young man. Good evening to you.
You know, I have really good facial products that I use.
Of course you do.
Yeah, you and I are about the same age. You know, I had a conversation with somebody earlier today about age and what we'll move on to the show here in a second. But he's going through some stuff. He's back with his family on the East Coast. And he gave me a list of things that he's dealing with in his family. And yeah, sucks. But you know what my answer to him was? and I made him laugh. I said, man, it's just part of getting old. It's older. It's the experiences that we go through. And I know that doesn't help, but we don't necessarily go through all of this when we are younger. And this is why we are so smart. And he laughed. And that's really, is that kind of the best way to look at it?
You're asking me?
Yeah. You got me by 2 years. So I'm going to ask the older, wiser gentleman.
So, I don't really think of it that way. I think it's just another stage of life. And in fact, in some ways, it's much more peaceful. I don't have to worry about the future in the way I used to. So it's more comfortable there. And if you got the means, I can do the sort of things I want to do, just like you.
Sure. You're right, though. There is something about this stage in life where it is less stressful.
There's a letting go involved.
Yeah.
And letting go is the answer to awareness and, kind of enlightenment, if you want to go that far. It's all a process of letting go, not getting more. Because when I was young, I always wanted to get more.
Now, before we move on, you get, Ron, the first time guest disclaimer, which the next time you're on the show with me, you're not going to get it, but you're going to get it now. And the disclaimer is this. Ron, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. And where the conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, it ends. But we're going to end as friends. Now, you have to accept so we can move on.
I accept.
Yeah. See, that's part of getting older. Yeah, less stressful.
You easily accept anything, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's all just perfect the way it is. No change.
I want to start here with a basic foundation on a few things. And one of the biggest questions, right? The biggest non-trivial question out there is where we're going to start. Very important for this show. Consciousness. Is consciousness physical or non-physical?
Non-physical.
Why?
It's the space in which all, in my point of view, experiences occur. And I'll use the analogy of the mirror. The mirror reflects anything that comes before it, whether it's good, bad, evil. And so, as a matter of experience, where is that experience occurring? It occurs in a space. I might call it the big space. Doing meditation, mindful meditation, you can notice there are sounds that arise in it. There are feelings in your body, little tweaks and everything. Emotions arise. Sounds arise. Smells arise. And then, of course, thoughts all arise in that same space. And it contains all of those. That space is the space of where everything can occur. And to a large extent, if you pay attention, you probably don't have much control over it all the time, especially the thoughts. They just show up. But they're not causative because, for example, if I'm having this thought right now, you could say, hey, and I would stop and it wouldn't need to end. It wouldn't push you away. So that space is undefined. Talking about near-death experiences, have you heard of the void in your conversation, the black light?
Of course.
And so I've had 2 of those, mystical but not near-death. And and on the second one, that was also the space of all potential. Everything arose out of that. It's hard to talk about, but I wasn't there. It was just this emptiness and infinite potential, and I think that's the source of it's all, and I think that's consciousness, one way or another, chopped up between us all.
We're going to circle back to this question, but it's fundamental with what you're mentioning right now. Dark matter, dark energy, these 2 things that science is desperately trying to find. And it seems to me if they get to those answers, that dark energy may be consciousness, and that is what is driving and connecting the universe. Of course, I think we can all agree that's what consciousness is, but they are going after this dark energy, which may turn out in the end to be consciousness, and they've never been able to discuss it. They don't want to discuss it. It's hard to measure and pinpoint. And because of that, in their pursuit of dark energy, is it possible that dark energy is consciousness? And when that discovery gets made, it's the next stage in human evolution?
I haven't heard that hypothesis. Can you say a little bit more about it? Where did
It's
it come
my,
from?
that's because it's my hypothesis.
All right.
And yeah, but I think about this a lot, and one of the reasons why I've come to that conclusion, and I'm going to throw this back at you because you're the scientist, but this is where my brain works really weird at night, and I'll be lying in bed in the dark, and something happens, and in studying physics and the comments that are made from physicists over the years and currently, about how thought continues. Okay, thought. And they talk about Boseman's brain and these concepts, but if thought and entropy, and thinking and the thinking and thought continue, it consumes energy. It's second law of thermodynamics. But if that is indeed the case, they are talking about consciousness without saying the C word, because they don't like to do that, do they? They don't. It's the red line for most physicists and scientists. But if that is the case, and thought is energy and thinking is energy out there in the universe, consuming energy to continue thought and thinking, well, maybe that is the dark energy that is driving and connecting the universe. And maybe they're in pursuit of the same thing. And that was this idea that popped in my head. And
so do you see it as a creative force?
I do. Okay. I do. Okay. And when it's all said and done, a few trillion years from now, right? When everything falls apart, that's what's going to be left. Consciousness. All the physical things may pull apart, but it'll be consciousness. And then another universe will start, maybe another big bang, something else will happen. And that's where our consciousness came from, was the leftovers from a previous universe. That's my take. And that's the creator. And if that, okay, let me throw one other idea out, and I want to get your comments on this. Forever is a long time, right? Forever is a long time. It goes back, it's infinite. And so if consciousness has always been there, then it's gotten really, really smart. And that could be the creator. That could be the creation of everything, and that's why it's been learning for forever, for an infinite amount of time. That's my take. What do you think of that? Could the creator just be consciousness existing forever?
Well, that kind of corresponds to what I was saying about the dark energy, the infinite potential. But at the same time, you probably heard this from the people you've interviewed on near-death experiences that have them, is that that's you too, and that's me too. We're not separate from that. Maybe our bodies will dissolve, but in a more fundamental way, we're that too. You can't, because we have consciousness, at least I do, and you're behaving like you do. So I think if we accept that, you have to accept what I just said. That's us too. We're part of that breathing into existence, the manifest world, and co-creating. It's not something you can stand back as a third person and analyze because you're in it.
Yeah, for sure.
Like
For
a fish
sure.
can't- Fish doesn't know what water is. Simple analogy.
Yeah, I love that analogy. And when people ask me about consciousness, and I know I don't want to be cavalier or sound juvenile with my response, but it's really true. It applies to everything. You want to know what consciousness is? Consciousness is when you bite into the perfect slice of pizza and the joy, the warmth, the happiness, all of these emotions that come out of that. How complex is that? And it's the same thing when you see the birth of a child, or the same thing, all these and to have that. I don't know if a rock has that. I don't know. I don't know if other animate objects have feelings like that. But happiness, sadness, joy, that's consciousness. And we experience it all day long. And that is, if I need to know that it is real, you experience that. And so does a physicist, the atheist, non-spiritual, right? Pragmatic, black and white scientist that doesn't believe in anything except for numbers, still experiences joy, happiness, and sadness. They have consciousness. And that's my take, and I'm going to stick by it.
Okay. Or do you want me to rebut you a bit?
I would love for you to rebut me. Can you?
Yeah. So all these things you mentioned, the joy and all that, those are all occurring in consciousness in the space I talked about, including the sense that you're experiencing them or the scientists. They're occurring in consciousness. The only way that you know that is because you're conscious, but consciousness itself is empty in its own sense. It's not defined. The way I look at it, and every thought that you have about it, the only way you know about it is because you become conscious of it.
Isn't that, and why is it that science wants to fight these fundamental concepts of what consciousness is?
Because that's how they get grants. That's how they get grants. I've interviewed as many people as you have, probably more in the educational vein, because I've done a lot of educational videos. And they're strictly materialistic. They believe everything is all set already back at the Big Bang. And then I'll say, well, what do you really believe? And none of them believe it. They're just afraid to talk about it because they've all had their experiences that say that worldview doesn't quite work all the time. So, but in order to get grants, you have to do that. I don't know if you've ever been in the business of being in a lab. I was in a lab for a while. You get these big grants, and then I don't, but the guy who had the grant could do all sorts of things with the money. That's the way the game works. And that's where the real innovation takes place. And then the government comes by and everybody stands up like little soldiers and says, yeah, this was the purpose. Here we are. These are our results. But it's really the other stuff that they're doing. And everybody knows that's a game they're playing and they have to play.
What do you make of, and then we're going to swing this over to Jesus really quick.
As everybody should, right?
Yeah, well, eventually it does, doesn't it? What do you make of free will and then the determined side of things, where these hardcore scientists and physicists are in such a determined existence that that there is no free will? I agree with that in a weird way, that math is math and particles are going to do what they're going to do. And eventually everything is going to happen the way it's going to happen. But I still would like to think that I'm making my own decision between a vanilla and a chocolate shake. What do you make of that? Are we in a determined existence, or is free will a thing?
So, in my opinion, which is probably not the normal opinion, I think free will is on a scale, that some people have more free will than others. You probably never heard that before, right?
No, how so? That's interesting.
Well, if you're, a poor person living, should we say, in some African country or some ghetto in this country, there's very little free will. You don't have a lot of choice. But people like you and I, we have a lot of free will, not only because of our physical circumstances, but because of, let's say, the kind of experiences we've been talking about. They open things up for us, and we can become creative. That's the pinnacle of free will, creating something new, which is kind of what I think we're about ultimately. And I think that's on a scale. So yes, there's free will, but not everybody has as much as anybody else. And what was the second part of your question?
Well,
So I think it's deterministic. I think that's bullshit. So right now, even the basic concept of energy loss, the second law of thermodynamics, that was based on the idea of a steam machine. We're not machines. That's all based on machines. We have living parts. You're alive, I'm alive. We have a lot of cells that are alive and multidimensional, scaled up and so on. So it's just the wrong metaphor. Second law of thermodynamics is falling away. I mean, the original scientific model was a clock, which is everything's determined, right? Tick, tick, tick. It's a machine again. So, we need a different model of what we are and how the universe operates. It doesn't operate like a clock or a steam engine. It operates more like a living system, maybe a living spiritual system. Does that make sense to you?
It does. It does. And if science keeps doing what they're doing, string theory, dimensions, 11 dimensions or more dimensions, the multiverse, many worlds, parallel worlds, certainly quantum mechanics and quantum computers, all of that is pushing towards a reality that exists around us that we can't see. And that's exactly what so many in our community have talked about for millennia. And it seems like science is pushing us towards that as well, that there's something else out there that we don't understand right now in this living version of us. Is science getting closer to talking about NDEs and life after death and something else out there that exists outside of our reality?
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's been my experience with many people I've interviewed. Yeah, so, consensus science is one thing, the peer-reviewed paper system and all that. Usually when the research is done, it's reviewed, and then it gets out there. They say it usually takes 25 years for whatever, if it's good, to get assimilated into kind of a public view. So it's very slow, the process. But, the scientific method is something different than science, consensus science. Consensus science is spelled out in textbooks where most people will say there's a lot of mistakes in these areas. Things just aren't true. But it creates a worldview that forces a lot of people, especially when they're young, to take things off the table because they think stuff in the textbooks is the authority. But there's a lot of people doing a lot of things that I come across that are going against that. Now they understand that that's pretty much all bullshit. Can I say bullshit on your show?
Of course.
Okay.
It's my favorite word.
Yeah. Does that make sense to you?
It does. It does.
It's a human enterprise, in a way that has a lot of the issues and problems that all experience has. And it's played like a zero-sum game to a large extent. If like we operate out of scarcity, and even these scientists, getting their grants for them, which is their lifeblood. If you get them for something else, they won't get it for their thing. So there's this weird kind of competition. And I know that because I was in the system for a while before I got into media.
When we look at Jesus and the resurrection, does that fit the classic definition of NDE?
No.
Or it doesn't, does it?
No. So unfortunately, I have a co-author on the book, right? And he's up in Canada right now, and he's a historian. So there's two events that are important in the Bible. The one that where Jesus probably had his near-death experience was one after John the Baptist, and Mark could tell this much better than I could. He went out into the desert for 40 days, and he went into a cave, and he came out enlightened and began his teaching. That was the time of the near-death experience. His crucifixion, when he was crucified, it was because his teachings were so weird, saying you can have the experience, direct experience of God like I had during my near-death experience, like you had, the unconditional love. And that was blasphemy, and he was crucified for that. But that's not his NDE. That's just his death, whereas the real event was in the desert. Does that make sense to you?
It does. Did you know, we're going to stay on Jesus, but Da Vinci went through the same thing.
A lot of people did. They just didn't know how to talk about it. They're called mystical experiences.
Right.
Yeah.
Da Vinci would go to a cave when he was a kid and hang out there and then come out with these crazy ideas. And and you have to just go back and ask yourself what was going on there, and what did he access, and how did he do it? Well, he wasn't the only person to do it in that fashion. We have many examples of that over time, don't we?
Yeah, and some of them are playing out right now. Like one of my teachers, Enlightenment teachers, worked for Steve Jobs early on. And the way he got hired, they both had gone to India, had an experience with a kind of guru. And they sat down from each other and looked at each other straight in the eye for an hour. And Steve said to Edward, "You're hired." But he also told Edward that he got a download of information and an altered state experience of the cell phone. And from that, he then knew what he had to create, and he just did. So that's part of the basis of the book we're talking about, how there's this group of people out there, most of them successful scientists, who've had these experiences, downloads of information, and are bringing it to fruition, but they don't talk about it. Jacques Vallée is probably the best known one who's come out, says I was a part of that group. So it's not just starting religions. You can get technology and other insights that you can turn into music like you did, or literature or poems, or a religion like Muhammad and Buddha. They were all having the same kinds of experiences from what I can read. But again, I'm not the historian.
I just got back from Peru, and there's a site there that is not popular like Machu Picchu and stuff. It's called Naupa Iglesia, and that's a modern name for it, but it's called Naupa, and it's a cave on the top of this mountain. It's a hike, but when you get to this cave, it's as spiritual as the day is long. It's incredible. But anyway, it's a megalithic cave. It's ancient, and it's got a cool shape to it. But anyway, you hike up the mountain, and when you enter the cave, at the front of the cave is this giant piece of black granite that is probably 20 feet wide, maybe 6 to 8 feet tall, and it's kind of a half dome shape. But carved into it are 3 seats. Okay, and it's obviously for a ritual or some kind of process. But then over on another wall carved into this granite, and it's incredible. It's just to see the workmanship. It's very old. It's megalithic. Is another portal type seat that's carved into the wall. And now my question is, when I go into a site like that, what was it that the ancients knew, and what was the purpose of these seats and these portals in this cave? And I can only imagine what it was like in the past. The cave itself is sealed off. You can no longer go deep into the cave. But there are stories behind that too as well. Do you think that the ancients did have the ability to get into another dimension and understand the process of getting there?
Probably a few, as they do now. I don't think it was something special to the ancients at
Right.
all. I think it's happening right now, as I was saying. Same phenomena. Probably talked about it differently because they were in different cultures. I think that for sure. I think that's true. That's been my experience. There are places now where you can travel to in a pilgrimage and have an altered state experience. In fact, I kind of created one at one time.
How?
How?
Yeah.
It's a story. Do you really
Yeah,
want
let's go. Let's go. Let's go. I need to learn from you.
So, I have some connection with the Bigfoot community.
Mm-hmm.
I was hired to do a series on Bigfoot back around 2015 or something by a company, that specializes in that kind of stuff. And I got the idea that, yes, people were having real experiences, when they saw Bigfoot, but I couldn't believe it was a hairy beast. I thought it was, one person said to me, I think it's something interdimensional. And so that set me on a course of ending up talking to you right now.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, I met my son-in-law, married my daughter, and he puts on this Bigfoot weekend in Bailey, Colorado, up in the mountains. And people come and they have experiences from Thursday through Sunday. And I decided I would do a meditation with the group. And earlier in the day, I get these synchronicities. There was a woman, I was giving her a DVD that's at this old resort from the turn of the 20th century. It's been turned into this lovely place to visit now. And it was something I had done. And she said, "Oh, can I tell you about my abduction when I was a teenager?" So I said, "Sure." And she did. And then she said, "Oh, I want to show you something else." And she came over and showed me this tree. She says, "This is a sacred prayer tree of the Ute Indians." And she told me, here's the places where they would come and get medicine. And there was this weird kind of configuration that they had modified it like a bonsai, culturally modified trees. And some shaman from the Ute Nation verified it. So I'd had experience with people touching trees, and feeling energy. Maybe you've heard of that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So with this group, I did the meditation, and I said, "Would you like to all come over now and touch this tree? Do it in small groups." And everybody did, and many had really good experiences, things they'd never experienced before. And then my son-in-law and I said, "Well, we should go do that. Why not?" Everybody else had wandered off, and so I have my hand on my trees, and my eyes are closed, and Alan has his on, and one eye open up, and there's a damn Bigfoot standing behind him.
What?
It's not a hairy beast. It's a shadow figure with kind of an orangish color.
Okay.
Standing right behind him. And I'm, my brain, how your brain, when you see these things, was trying to make sense of it. And Alan was kind of waffling in and out, kind of like in Star Trek when they beam people up. And finally, I said to Alan, you know, there's a creature behind you. He said, yes, I know. I felt it come up. So we then made a little movie about that where people had similar experiences and so on. And people have seen the movie, and people now come and see the tree and have their own experiences. It's become like a sacred site. So that's...
Well, I love that, but you're a scientist. Do you start to work through why this happened and how it happened?
I do, but I don't get a lot of answers. You know, I think I'm not supposed to really figure it out right now.
Isn't that strange? Isn't that strange?
It's goddamn strange. It's frustrating.
It's strange. Yeah. I'll tell you why it's strange. In my very humble opinion, maybe, just maybe, there's things that we're just not meant to figure out yet.
Okay.
So many things are just right beyond proof, right? Just a step away. Whether it's a photograph, a video, an experience, something tangible, an explanation, a chemical process, measurement, mathematics, whatever it is, right? It's just one step away from that. And because we're just not ready for it. Maybe that's it.
Or right now, it's part of the plan, if I could say that, for us to become more accepting of this weird stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we have blinders on that are, you know, from our language, our culture, and we can't see all these things. I'm just using seeing as a metaphor. So this kind of opens us up to more of these, and gradually they're accumulating as more people, and finally they're talking to each other, even the scientist people, because you have to make comparisons and look for similarities and differences. So I think it's a process that's happening right now.
There is there's another element to it, I believe, which is having science, because science is what keeps me sane. All right, I've done too much woo. I've seen too much stuff. I've experienced too much stuff. But the only thing that keeps me from jumping in the deep end of the pool is going back to science and seeing what science has to say about these things. And here's where we are, I think, today, is our understanding of frequencies, of dimensions. The word interdimensional now is so frequent in these conversations, where it wasn't used 30, 40, 50 years ago with Bigfoot or UFOs or anything like that. Maybe in the ghost community a little bit, but not in this world of science. But now when we see something, Ron, like you experiencing what you saw with Bigfoot, or people out seeing something appear and disappear in the sky, where this interdimensional conversation comes in. And that is a part of the understanding where I think we're getting closer to it, this interdimensional aspect. And maybe that will start to prepare us for this absolutely supernatural phenomenon. What do you think? Do you think that we're just getting smarter and then we'll be able to grasp it?
I think, you know, it's part of the shift in the paradigm of what's possible, certainly away from the two previously accepted models, the clockwork and the steam engine.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's slowly building, and it has to, you know, stabilize itself a lot more. So it's part of the language that's being tossed about that, but I don't think it's the final story. I think it's more like the paradigm has to be more like a parts made up of intelligences in some way, that's living with its own multi-level goals. It has to be a world of goals, and goals lead to creativity and imagination. That new paradigm of the universe of which we are in because scientists put themselves in their own model of the clock and the steam engine. Like, I'm a steam engine. I just don't, when the steam engine falls apart, I fall apart. So it applies to them, which is a very kind of disheartening thing for a lot of young people with that worldview. It makes it sound very meaningless and so on. So that's the danger of it, and I think the part that's terrible about it. We need a much better paradigm coming from science that will allow us to flourish better, perhaps.
When you were with your son and had that spiritual experience with the tree, and then seeing something you've described as Bigfoot, 2,000 years ago, during the period of the resurrection, when Jesus was walking around doing his thing with his disciples and John the Baptist and what have you, those same experiences came from a different mindset. And so if they had the same experience, it would be angels, right? Or the devil or the soul, right?
Yeah.
That's the way that, because they didn't have a foundational vocabulary or an advanced understanding to apply to it. So it always had a religious bent, don't you think?
I think that's right. It's what worked for them at the time. It's how all these things are still mediated by language and culture. You and I, we're stuck in it to a large degree. But as you know, when people have near-death experiences, the brain shuts down. And in, extreme mystical experiences, that model diminishes and a more truthful representation or experience of what's real occurs. But then when we come back, we don't quite have the language for it.
No, not at all.
No.
Not at all. The partial explanation from scientists that haven't had a near-death experience, but they read about it or they hear about it, they jump into the skeptical car and they'll just go, it's adrenaline. It's the brain shutting down with lack of oxygen. It's imagination. It's memories getting released. They try to explain it away, don't they?
This is true. For sure. But whether they believe it or not, I don't know.
Oh, they believe it when the plane is going down. Oh, they believe it that. Oh, they're very spiritual when the shit's about to hit the fan. But until then, they just want to be a skeptic or debunker.
So, a lot of them, I ask them, usually I started doing this, it's like, what's the strangest thing that ever happened to you? And they usually have something to say, for sure. When I was 5 years old, there was something bouncing around in my bedroom. You'll get that out of them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's really funny where there'll be a debunker and a skeptic, but they won't go into a haunted house.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's really funny. What is, let's walk through this. What is the Prometheus Project?
The Prometheus Project is a fictional group of people in the novel that have learned how to use near-death experiences in a controlled way to get these downloads or these experiences. And another thing that comes out of near-death experience are new skills. A lot of side skills, precog, telepathy. My own one is synchronicities. And I got a couple others I don't talk about much.
Why?
And so they're getting better at it over time. They figured it out. There was a place in Greece called Elysium, am I pronouncing it correctly? Where all the greats of the Roman culture, of the Greek culture would go to this place north of Athens, and they would do it as sort of a pilgrimage, and they would go have some kind of enlightenment experience, and come back and give us everything we call Western, including science, math, democracy. They all went there and had those experiences. So it goes way back. It's ancient, and that's again probably what Jesus was doing and Muhammad had, and Buddha, that they would have this kind of. So jumping ahead to the future, people have figured out that there's a way to induce these near-death experiences and have them controlled using hallucinogenics. And so they've been using them largely to enhance their skills and get these technological downloads and move technology forward. But now somebody in the group has learned to take them even deeper and be more controlled. And the idea is, well, they divide into three fractions. So in reality, in our world, it's called the invisible college, these men and women who keep secret about their processes like this. And well, one group says, let's keep the technology going. We're having a good time. Another group becomes religious and says, this is sinful and let's kill the whole damn thing. And the other says, let's use it to transform humanity into something greater, a higher level human, a biological, perhaps technological combination that's not controlled by the self-other distinction. The self-other distinction comes out of evolution and is at the root of all human problems, probably at all scales. It scales way up to the highest level and down to the interpersonal level, to the family, to the tribal. And so the story is about a race between these three groups. It's a thriller in a way to the ultimate conclusion that takes place in Landers.
Landers, California. We'll come back to that. You describe this in such detail that I have to ask you, is this truth and fact hidden as fiction?
Yes.
Yeah. Figured. Okay, let's stay right here. Come closer, Ron. You're louder on the microphone.
Yeah.
I want to hear your answers. With the creation, and we're getting really, really good at this right now, with the brain-computer interface, the BCI, using that and using artificial intelligence, and the ability to read brain waves, are we closer to accessing all of this? And when an NDE occurs, that we can see it and experience it and record the data?
No. It doesn't work that way, in my opinion. Here's the real danger in some ways with AI, is that, and the people who are developing this and trying to figure out the guardrails, comes back to the self-other distinction. That, Turing, the founder of computers, Alan Turing, did you know that?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you don't know his name, I don't know. But he said, if you create a superior intelligence, it'll get rid of you as the inferior intelligence. Quickly. And so if our self-other distinction, which is so important in the way we function so much, just look at the political divide and all that crap that's going on. It's all based on the self-other. If I saw you as the same as me, well, I would treat you like me. And at every scale. And so one of the greatest fears is that these artificial intelligences will develop, because it's based a lot on our data, that the game to be played is the self-other distinction. We are the other.
There is a metaphor that's played out there when it comes to AI that is scary, but also it's a good thought experiment. But you go and you ask artificial intelligence, an AGI level system, to get rid of the world's pollution, right?
Yeah, I know where you're going.
Yeah, and it kills all humans because we caused the pollution. Now, it doesn't know. You just said you asked, right, to get rid of pollution, and it does. It doesn't care about humans. It's superior to us. So you want to get rid of pollution, we'll do it. You got to get rid of you, and there's no pollution. And that's what you're talking about. With it,
That'd be one version, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But what about the flaws, though, that we see today in AI? It's not as intimidating sometimes as we think it is, where AI likes to make shit up as fact, makes a lot of mistakes, outright lies in some cases. The famous thing that happened a couple of weeks ago was an article that was written, I think it was the Chicago Sun-Times, Chicago Tribune, the 10 best books to read this summer. Did you see that article?
I did not. I mean, I saw that somebody I saw it on my news feed, but I didn't go any deeper than that.
It's hilarious. 5 of the books of the 10, 5 of the books were fictional authors and fictional titles, completely made up by AI. And it was the 10 best reads for the summer.
You know, they're getting better and they're getting smarter. One of the interesting aspects is that, you know, we do our training. You know, did you have any kids?
I do.
Remember when you were young and we had to punish them or reward them? You know, the way we trained them? But they do the same thing with AI, at least the Chinese model. Only rewarded, no punishment. Which is,
but the AI seems to do a lot better when it's punished or rewarded.
But they just had rewards. There was no punishment. You know, we spend all our training of our kids, you know, probably dealing out more punishment than rewards. Don't do this, don't do that. You know, negative. No wonder they hate us when they become teenagers, huh?
I've seen a couple of movies lately, and a couple of books that I've read lately about the sport of an artificially induced NDE and people going through this and going through the experience and then coming back out of it for enlightenment. Is that something that's real, or are people actually doing this? And I've read the, you know, like known people doing this, and I don't know if they're making it up. Is this something that does this actually go on?
Well, you know, there are meditative NDEs. You're familiar with that?
Well, I think that I do that.
So do you
okay. What is a meditative NDE?
It's a procedure developed largely by Scott Taylor. Have you ever had him on?
I have not. I don't
From
think.
the Monroe Institute. He'll take people into a kind of a trance state.
Oh man, I don't want to feel bad. Hey, Bill, have I had Scott Taylor on the show? He's going to go, yeah, last month. Watch this. Too many shows, Ron.
Was he on?
I don't know. It's going to pop up here in the chat here in a second. Somebody look that up for me. Scott Taylor, Monroe.
You know, Michelle knows him quite well if you want to get him on. You can talk about this quite clearly.
Then I probably have had him on. I probably have. Hold on. Come on, Bill. You're slow. Okay, so hold on. Yeah. I had him on last month.
Maybe you didn't ask him the right question.
I had him on May 12th. I'm so embarrassed. Okay, so back to this though, the meditative NDE.
According to Scott, it does work. People get into that altered state. I mean, I've had similar mystical experiences is another form of it, but it's not medical, I don't think.
Is there a chemical way to do it, or is there another way to
that's what
induce it?
hallucinogenics are about to a large degree, probably.
Right.
Sure, for sure.
And so they flatline, not in the meditative side, but in a medically induced NDE.
So it's all about turning down certain processes, letting go. And that can happen in different ways. And there's no doubt you could do that medically right now. Yes, of course. And bring them back.
Are the experiences described in the same way? You
mean that you can't really describe them?
Yeah, that too. Well, when you look,
they all say they enter some non-physical world.
Right.
There's no body there anymore. And communication takes place, you might say, telepathically. It's not chit chat in English language usually.
Now, if Jesus has an NDE, all right, Jesus has an NDE. We have an NDE, and so many people have a religious experience with it. See God, maybe meet some angels, the life review, heaven and hell, right? All that stuff comes into play for a lot of people. What's Jesus NDE like? Is it religious?
No, he had a direct experience of God, the Father. And unconditional love, according to the way he went and taught.
Right.
And that you too can have that. You too are the Son of God.
With your NDE, was it religious?
Me?
Yeah.
I've only had mystical experiences, never on the border of clinical death.
Okay. Let's take our break right here. Let's get that in. Our guest tonight, Ron Meyer. We are talking about his new book, and Jesus had an NDE. We're going to do all of that and much more when we come back after this short break. Stay with us. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on for a second. I've got the wrong commercial queued up. I've got the right one now. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Beckley Teppy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. Today we're headed to Bolivia, Tiwanaku, Peru, and of course, Pumapunku. Brian, exciting. Thank you so much for everything, my friend.
Always an honor. Right behind us is the sacred river of the Inca that goes past Machu Picchu. So we're going to be driving up to its source at 15,000 feet above sea level and then down to Lake Titicaca.
So today we hit 15,000 feet.
Yes.
Crazy. And you can do it with us. All you have to do is go to hiddenincatours.com. Simple. We've got 2 tours coming up next year, one in June for the summer solstice, right? And then another one right here in November. So hiddenincatours.com. Come and hang out with Brian and I and his amazing team.
Right on.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Ron Meyer is with us. Jesus had an NDE. That is the subject of the show tonight. We're talking about technology, AI, faith, and of course, the near-death experience, all of that and much more. And we've got Ron Meyer. He's right there. Ron, what do we do with the issues between faith and technology these days? Are they ever going to merge?
Did you say faith?
Faith.
Interesting question. So, faith and belief are things that scale. Religion based on faith and belief scale, so it can get quite large because you all believe and have faith in the same thing. Now, experience, what you and I have talked about quite a bit already, is something that's not scalable right now. So, in Christianity after Jesus, when he said everybody can have your own experience of God like I have, that you are to a son of God and in some way God, that was not scalable. So the Romans turned it into a religion and belief that you would, if you had faith in Jesus, you'd be saved. But, you had to carry that belief around. And of course, it was political, and still is in a lot of ways. Now, technology there'd be no technology if there were no humans, at least as far as we know. Technology is something that we create through a sequence of steps to create a piece of technology. And it probably went back to, in objects in abundance in a way, right? We got a lot of cell phones, but the number of steps involved in creating a cell phone is enormous. And so whether we're religious, faith-based or not, all these good old scientists that we've been kind of bad-mouthing a bit are good at creating steps of creation in their technology. So in some sense, we're making through technological innovation new things that are possible in the world, and at the same time in the universe, if you like, other things that are not possible anymore, because space of what's possible gets defined by what's already been done to a large extent. Because if you're going to build something really special, you'll probably have to go through, like, say, the transistor stage and all that. You see that that technology is something we're doing as humans. It's totally creative. It's not spontaneous, and it's not given. And yet, all these scientists don't quite understand that. Does that make sense to you? So these are very different. To some degrees, these are very different categories for me. Faith is something that's scalable and joins people together into a them or us against we kind of situation. And technology is something that humans are being used at the very least to create new possibilities in the universe. Does that make any sense to you, or is it just crazy?
No, it does. It does. And I think the point that you mentioned here is an extraordinary one. If there was let's say there was some pandemic that I understand what a cell phone is. I understand what technology is. I do. I have a pretty good understanding on how to run things, like most of us do. But let's say there was some crazy disease that knocked off all of the engineers of the world, right? Okay.
I'll give you that.
And you and I, right? You're a smart guy. You and I are on an island that's got all of the resources needed to make a chipset and a cell phone. But that doesn't mean you and I are building cell phones that week. It would take thousands of years to get back to manufacturing chips. I don't know how to manufacture chips. I don't know how to write software. I don't know how to. And if we had to start back at zero and have to go through all of those steps that we went through to get to the point where we are today, how long would that take? And we lose sight of that, don't we, today? We take technology for granted.
So an interesting metaphor is you and me. We started out as a single cell. Do you believe that?
I know, right?
And somehow, in the process of probably 20 years, the most complex thing ever created, in some ways, was us. All these different functions in our body, all these organs, knowing left from right, a group of senses, that a brain that can somehow interface with them, create a model of ourselves in the world that can keep being updated and getting better or getting worse, all in 20 years. And there's no obvious designer of that sitting outside. Here's the designer, Jimmy Church, that did it. So
when you put it that way, and I think about it often, Ron, I go divine.
I
go divine. Yeah, I go divine. For some doofus like Richard Dawkins, right? And I use the word doofus. Dolt is a better way to define Richard Dawkins, that claims to know everything about biology and everything that there is, and he's the smartest person in the world. He is not. And to suggest that single cell that develops with RNA and DNA into these complex, our brains, which is probably the craziest invention in the entire universe, that it is just chance, right? That it's a lightning bolt that came down and struck some amino acids on a crystal in a creek bed, and then DNA happened.
So there again,
I call bullshit on that, man. I call bullshit.
So there again is a case where consensus science is way behind what most scientists know. They know that there's not enough information in the DNA or RNA to create us as full-fledged human beings or any other thing, just not there. It helps to keep a cell running, keep the hardware going a little bit, but the larger form, no way. They all know that now.
It's not okay. So let's stay on this. This is where I go in the divine side, and I'm okay with that. In that we just retrieved soil from the asteroid Bennu. Okay. 2 years ago, so we go out, we launch a satellite to it, a probe. We go down, we collect it. It comes back. The canister lands in the desert in Utah. We go out, we collect the can. Just the technology of pulling that off is pretty extraordinary that we achieved that. But anyway, so we test what we dug up on this random asteroid. And you know what we found? The 20 amino acids that make up RNA on this asteroid. And to top that off, we found the 5 proteins that make up DNA. And proteins are complex. That's complex stuff. Proteins are a whole nother thing. But this is on an asteroid floating around in space, Ron.
Yeah, that's kind of the goo. The undifferentiated goo, yeah.
And what does that suggest to you if the basics for life are just on a random asteroid floating around and surviving in the vacuum of space, I might add? What does that tell you?
I think that's all bullshit. That's just the goo. They thought they could achieve something like that, back when this guy, I forget his name, did this experiment and run electricity into it. You get the goo. What's missing is the information. So you've heard what Legos are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people built like Hogwarts, can't speak, the castle of Hogwarts, right? And that one of my nephews built one of those for his future wife. And you think that castle could pop into existence randomly? What's the chances of that ever occurring? Pretty much zero, right?
It's still possible.
But how many times would you flip them in the air and hope a cattle showed up?
Yeah, I'm with you. But it's probable. It wouldn't happen tomorrow, but it could happen at some point.
Or maybe not.
Or maybe not.
Or if you try to do it without a set of instructions of short steps, you build this first and then this. And so this informational process, whatever that is, you need that information to build that Hogwarts. And information is the piece of physics that's missing right now, and it's non-physical. It can be carried non-physical. It can be carried in physics. Think of all the ways my voice is going through different mediums to you, and I have a meaning, and you're acting like you're understanding me to some degree. And whatever that is that's carried in all these different ways is called information in this way of thinking about it. And that's at the basis of everything that goes against, the machine model of the universe of these consensus physicists who really don't believe it anyhow. And so we're actively involved in technology, building these things now. The cell phone has so many steps built into the many parts. So we're using parts, in our body that were developed over 500 million years ago. Took it that long. Without those parts, you and I wouldn't be here. And that's all information in steps. Yeah.
And I love this this idea. And the reason for that is there is something intelligent that knows the process of creating a biological entity and then having consciousness absorb into it. Okay, that's an intelligence that I don't know if it's spiritual. I don't know if it's God. I don't know what that is, but it's not just by chance that this process can happen to the point where you and I can have bliss, happiness, grief, sadness, and all of these things that happen when consciousness enters our brains and our cells. That there's some intelligence behind that. I just don't believe it's just something that happens.
It's you. It's the essence of who you are. You're the creator.
You think so?
Yep. You just don't know it.
Is that Occam's razor? Is that just the simplest way to look at it?
Never thought about it that way. It would it'd make you think anyhow, right? If you were the creator, because what I'm saying is that the biggest example that we're creators is that we're doing all this technology. We're creating the technology that never existed before, as far as we know. And it's done through a lot of steps of information.
I mean, how? Okay, let's stay right here. How is it possible that we, as far as I know, it's only us. It could be another species, but how is it possible that we can contemplate quantum mechanics? How is it that we think about the micro and the biggest of all, the macro in the universe, that we think about these things? Do dogs think about these things? Do chimpanzees think about these things?
No, it goes back to language. Creation of language. I mean, I think dogs can kind of worry about what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes and what might happen, 20 yards in their yard, but probably not 5 blocks away or 2 days in the future. But, on a small, everything's on a scale. So that process is there on a smaller scale, if we look at it, than we do. I think the cells have simple goals like that in a way, that everything's kind of on a scale. It's not just binary. That's part of the basis of I keep walking away from the microphone, sorry. If everything's on this simple binary principle, free will, not free will, free choice or not free choice. It's just not binary. It's all scaled.
But do chimpanzees think about time?
I don't. Maybe in some small way is what I'm saying, but not the way we do. I mean, they have goals. We can see that, and you need time to have goals because you have to move towards them. So yeah, I think they do. I think it goes way down. I think cells have goals. DNA has goals. It goes all the way down there. That's pretty well demonstrated now. These things are not yes or no. You got to get that out of your head.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because when you look at the animal kingdom, you can see the emotional bond with parents, right? In the animal kingdom.
Oh,
and they grieve, right?
Oh, sure.
They they protect, and there's a and they act like parents just like we do. There's something that is there that is fundamental to life and consciousness.
Yeah, but it's in different degrees. It's, you can look at it as the largest goal that they could possibly, pursue and achieve. We can pursue goals that will never occur in our lifetime, right? So
Yeah,
we can do that. We do that with our families. We set aside IRAs and shit like that.
Right. And they do too in their own way. Yeah.
Yeah, but on a smaller scale. Like I said, my dog doesn't worry about what's going on 3 blocks away.
Oh,
but
your dog.
We're there. Yeah, then they're a little concerned with it. It's got a little nemesis dog that she doesn't like, and so on. Remembers.
Your dog is listening to you right now going, dude, I understand relativity. Don't mess with me. I often wonder about that.
You said people think about quantum mechanics, but that's I don't know the mathematics. I used to know mathematics when I was younger, but now I don't care and I can't do it anymore. But I don't think anybody really thinks about quantum mechanics in any real way. It's all based on the mathematics. And then when you get down to interpretations, they're all pretty bizarre and non-intuitive to me.
Isn't that fascinating, though? It truly is. It truly is. Which always takes me back to
which it's all probabilistic, which means it's not determined. So that contradicts their major premises that it's all determined, which has always been strange to me.
Well, okay, back to determinism. There is a part of me that understands that particles are limited and therefore they can only combine so many different ways. Particles don't combine infinitely. So if that's the case, gold is gold, helium is helium, hydrogen is hydrogen, no matter where you go in the universe. So if they are going to react and do their thing, then yes, I understand the determined part of stuff, that everything is going to happen the way it's going to happen mathematically. That makes a lot of sense, that it's just the way it is. It's a big number, but particles are going to combine and that's it. And me talking to you right now in a random sort of way, well, a physicist would say to me, no, you were going to ask that question anyway. The conversation was going to happen the way that it happened. It may seem random, it may seem like free will, but no, that is just the universe evolving. And I understand that. I understand that viewpoint. I do. It makes sense to me. But yet I wake up and some days I ride my Harley and some days I don't. And I would like to think that that's free will. But then there are others that are saying, no, that's already predetermined if you were going to ride your Harley or not.
So, what's the basis for them saying that?
Math.
No.
Oh, it's different. Okay, what is the basis of them saying that?
Their theory. I mean, not in the smallest cubicle of air or anything like that, they can't compute. They can't compute it. What's going to happen? They can't compute any of that stuff.
Well, okay, but their argument will always be, if you go to Newtonian,
it's always coarse graining. The concept is coarse graining. They simplify it. That's like thermodynamics. You stick a thermometer into this cubic inch of air and you get a temperature, but they could never, there's no way they could ever, they can't even compute really how four bodies in the solar system works. There's no math that works for that. So it's all kind of bullshit in a way. They're basing that on, a pipe dream, that it could be computable, but nobody's ever done it. They haven't done it at all. It's just that just has never happened.
But they simplify it with descriptions like this. I'm gonna make this really simple. But in Newtonian physics, the basic math, if you have the mass and the velocity of something, you can predict its future. So you throw a baseball, the weight of the baseball, you've got the speed, exactly where that baseball is going to land, right? And that's predicting the future. And so you can apply that same model to everything. And you could roll it out and predict the movement of the universe.
Well,
And where
the truth
things are
is
in the
they
future.
can't do that. I'm just telling you that they can't do that with 5 or 6 bodies of celestial bodies. It just is impossible. And of course, all these things are coarse grain. It's an approximate thing with the throwing the ball because there's friction. There's all sorts of other factors. And right now they're kind of realizing that the gravitational constant is been changing, and you got to accept also that, which is okay with me, is that right now you're affecting everything in the universe, your body, by distorting space, everything, all the time. Does that make sense to you intuitively?
Well, it does. It does. That's
Well,
why. That's why. There
But
are
is the computer
problems.
though? No.
But there's problems with the way science operates today. We were talking about this earlier. It used to be scientists would think completely outside of the box and then go and they think of something crazy and then try to go and chase down a reason why. And that's how we learned so much. That type of science is gone.
I agree.
It's completely gone.
No. Now it's been reinvented with the people that are doing frontier models of AI. That was their goal originally. They've stated that clearly. It's the old German model of natural science or something like that. The institutions of today are training people to fit into our economy in a certain sense, as opposed to make new discoveries. But that's the reason why this development of AI is going so quickly, as they went back to the old model of the 19th century of science, where it's wide open. You're taking me down all these weird paths, man.
I love this, man. I love this kind of conversation. Do you think that AI will achieve sentience?
Is sentience the right question? What do you mean by sentience?
It's the question that I asked.
Well, you have to tell me what you mean by it. If you mean that they will have some sort of sensing devices like we do.
No. Feelings, consciousness, sentience.
Well, those are different things. You should keep them straight a little bit, just to,
not in my mind. Okay, so right now our AI models are just scraping our current knowledge. Okay, that's what it's doing. Some of it thinks for itself, some of it writes its own code and can create things, but it's still basing itself on our current knowledge base, our current database. But will AI achieve
I'll disagree with you there. Right now, it's pretty clear that they're accessing mathematics that we've never, as humans, have ever encountered, which is some of the reasons they can do stuff so fast. It's not based on anything any human's ever done. So, there's going back to these weird experiences during near death and downloads and so on. There's another hypothesis called the Platonic world. Have you heard about that?
No, what is it?
So it's the world of forms. That's where mathematics exists. It's a non-physical world that is where our memories are stored. Where the fields that tell us how we should be. These are theories, and I kind of like them. That there's this Platonic world, and that there's an interface. Our brain makes an interface with these things, this world, and that's where we get a lot of our ideas are. And all these forms that are non-physical are what are kind of like blueprints for how we are and how things happen. And so when people have near-death experiences, they're accessing the Platonic world to some degree. That was described by the Greeks way back when they went to this, had their near-death experiences or whatever they had at Elysius. That's where these ideas are coming from. Is this world of form? So that was Plato's cave, right?
Yeah, Plato's cave. Okay, but will AI get to that point where it operates the same as the human brain?
Oh, much better, I'm sure.
So
Much better.
understanding problem solving.
Oh God, yeah, easy. They're already doing that.
Not really. Can't AI still can't read a calendar. Doesn't
Well,
understand a calendar. Can't read a clock on the wall,
yes.
dude.
So there are a lot of problem spaces where we all operate. You and I operate in
Right.
social ones, linguistic ones, all kinds of them, radial ones, technological. So there's zillions of problem spaces that they're operating on, solving problems, creating their own initiatives, and creating new stuff. So in terms of our physical sensory world, it's not so great. It was designed for survival, not for reality. So they'd probably bypass that because it's a bunch of crap. That's my opinion.
Oh, okay. But here's the problem I have with taking that next step. Let's say you like blue cars. All right. Now, AI may know that about you and the facts that are out there about you that you like blue cars, but it doesn't know why you like blue cars. And it may be because when you were 5 years old, your neighbor had a blue car and you would go over and you would smell the car and touch the car and ride in the car and you fell in love with the car. And there's an emotional reason why you like the color blue. Well, for AI to get to that level of being human, it would have to be able to, if it likes the color blue, why does it like the color blue? It didn't go through the experiences that you did as a child. So at what point does AI achieve that level of consciousness? And I'm not sure if that is possible.
So I would say it'll bypass that. It's not you wouldn't right now. That's our problem. It's one of our main problems. Is that we're in this kind of that kind of realm, that it's not that great. It's not that great for actually seeing reality. Most of our technological advances are through machinery that look at things quite differently. So I think it'll bypass that. It doesn't need to go there to become superior to us. So
I would say it would have. Okay. Well, let me spin it another way. All right. What's your favorite band? Let's go this direction. What's your favorite band?
Springsteen.
Bruce Springsteen. Why? Well, there's a million reasons why.
Sure.
All right. So no matter how you got to that point of saying Bruce Springsteen, you've got a lifetime of experiences to say Bruce Springsteen to answer that question. AI will never have those experiences. And so to be superior to us, it would need to have those emotions to help decide things. And if it doesn't, it may be good at math. It may be good at creating cures for cancer, but it ain't going to be cool. It's not going to be cool like Ron Meyer. It's not going to be, you know what I mean? Oh man, I like Bruce Springsteen because he wrote Blinded by the Light. You know what I mean? That's why I feel good about AI not ever being superior to us.
So all I can say is, get your head out of the sand.
No, not me. No, my head's out of the sand, Ron. See, that's why. Is it possible? Yeah, eventually. And there are physicists out there that will say that there's a little piece of consciousness in every particle. And you assemble and you get this mass of particles together in between our ears, and consciousness arises out of that.
Yeah, I'm well aware of that idea.
Yeah, and that's my fear. you put enough computer chips together, well, there's consciousness and all those little particles that make up those chips, and maybe consciousness arises out of the mass of a computer system.
That's called panpsychism, right?
Yep, it is. And that's what scares me.
Interesting. So, I'm not drawn to that hypothesis. Just not.
I'm not either. I just it's my Pandora's box. It's my Pandora's box. Okay, you ever get up in the morning and your car doesn't start and you're pissed off and you kick the car and you yell at the car, right? Well, maybe that car is conscious and it's angry at you for yelling at it. And that's why it's not starting. It could be an example of that.
Well, I heard that ancient people said there was spirit in everything, So if that's your worldview, that's how you have to function. Not my worldview.
Do you remember, did you see the movie Everything, Everywhere, All at Once?
I did, but I can't remember. No.
Okay. Well, there, great movie about the multiverse and many worlds and so forth. But really, really well done movie in those concepts. But in the end, so the movie, the protagonist is the daughter. You have the mom. What's her name? Michelle. I can't. Anyway, so it's their relationship that the movie's based on. And in the end, they make up, right? They make up, they kiss and make up at the end of the movie. You don't think that they will, but they do. But at the end of the movie, their consciousness is inside of two rocks. Yeah, two rocks sitting on a cliff. And they're talking to each other. Hey, Mom, what's going on? So I'm just happy that we kissed and made up. Yeah, me too. Look at this view of this canyon. Isn't it beautiful? It is. Look at the sunset. But it's two rocks talking to each other. And as the camera pulls back, you see what's going on in the conversation. And it's two rocks. Going back to your point, consciousness exists everywhere. It's a pretty interesting end to the movie.
It is. But I'm not buying it exactly.
Oh man!
The point of these things is to test your imagination, expand your imagination, get you to thinking. If it does that, it's good. Can I tell you something that's happening right now? It's quite interesting. An experience.
Yes.
Last year, in about this time of the year, we were down in Arkansas, in Oklahoma, doing a movie with a woman who had a near-death experience. I think I sent you a link to the trailer.
Yeah, I've got it up in the it's in our chat.
Yeah, it's coming out. I think it's hitting the street date sometime in July. Wasn't in July now, I think. And we were at a place in Oklahoma where we were staying, a place that was kind of known for paranormal stuff. And at night there was this campfire ring of, where you could sit around, but it was wet and damp, and we sat around it and we did a meditation, and we got into sort of an altered state where we were kind of joined to one entity, and the sounds there were a lot of sounds of crickets and frogs and stuff. They were all silent, and it was really cool. And then I did this chant, which is a basic chant that comes from, it's in the book, the novel book that, I'm promoting, hopefully. And it's the chant of the base symbols that are there in every language. Not all of them, but every language is based on them. And it's A, E, I, O, U. Every language, although how different, is based on those syllables, okay? Some can exclude a couple, but there are no other ones. And so it's a primitive chant that a teacher told me I could do it to lose myself, get the self disappear. And I did it once doing a Nordic trek and chanting A-I-O-U, A-I-O-U, A-I, going like that. And all of a sudden the self disappeared and there was just the world. And then I sat down on the couch and I watched the ego form back into being around. It was really cool. And Scott Taylor, who you interviewed, uses it in his meditative practice. So we did that there. And then we were going to break up at night. We were going in different directions, different cabins. And from my perspective, this place where the fire ring was carved out was amongst really tall, deciduous trees, maybe 2 stories high. All of a sudden, I hear something crashing through the tops of them, curving around, not dropping, but curving around and going towards where my son-in-law and the woman who had the near-death experience and somebody else were walking to their car. The cameraman was going in the opposite direction. They heard the same thing come down and hit like 5 feet with a huge thump that shook the ground. The cameraman didn't hear anything like that, but he felt the thump, thought I had fallen over because I was old.
Mm-hmm.
And we looked for something, and there was nothing there. It was a pretty open area. Just could not, it would have had to been a giant rock. But what could cruise along like that for a while and then just drop and make a thump? But then 2 weeks ago, we were out in a place out by Bailey where I talked about the pear tree is, prayer tree. And all of a sudden, we heard this thing coming from the woods. It was loud. And there was a guy with us. And we said to him, "What did you hear?" And he said, "I heard A-I-O-U."
Really?
And then that's the chant, right? And then last weekend, back there again. This time we were ready for a recording. We got a recording and it occurred again. We did an analysis on it, and it broke down clearly saying A-I-O-U. Now, what in the hell is that about?
What do you make of that? And is it geographical?
So it's 2 very different locations. Something would have to have a memory of that, or some,
Right.
I suppose that chant, as I said, is used in many places. Like Scott Taylor uses it in his meditation. So it's not totally secret to me, but that it connects in some way to an earlier experience we had, which is inexplicable as well. Is it trying to say something? Do you ever had Ron Moorhead on?
Yes, of
Sierra
course.
Sounds?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like the Sierra Sounds. The analysis that ChatGPT did was that it's a language. Because that's what they say the Sierra Sounds was too. So he told me that he regretted that he was trying to figure out what it is as opposed to what it was trying to tell him, the sounds. Is it trying to tell us something now?
When I bring up geographical, because you brought up landers earlier, and you've written about and you've done so much research at different locations. It seems like the phenomena, whether it's supernatural, paranormal, or something else altogether, has a higher degree of occurrence at specific locations. Why do you think that is?
You mean hotspots?
Hotspots is, let's go with that.
Oh God!
Okay. We have the Pacific Northwest with Bigfoot. You've got Landers and Joshua Tree with UFOs. You've got Seattle and that area with UFOs. You've got New Mexico that's got just a little bit of everything. You've got the Uinta Basin in Utah with a little bit of, but these are geographically specific areas. Why do you think that is?
Well, people suggest portals.
Right.
People suggest something about the substrate, that it's conducive to opening. Like we did an investigation at Bradshaw Ranch, and it's underneath it is quartz crystal base with red sandstone, both at have electrical properties that may enhance its ability to open portal doors or something. Skinwalker Ranch, they're messing around with that crap.
Mm-hmm.
You ever been there?
I've been invited. I know everybody up there, but no, I haven't been yet. I've been to the other places though, and I've experienced stuff at these
You
places.
been to Bradshaw Ranch?
I've been next to it. Yes.
So we did a huge investigation there. Interacted with alien intelligences. Son-in-law saw Bigfoot. Found a portal. Got it. Got it on a trail cam. These orbs pouring out of it. It was really cool.
Wow.
And it was up in the air about this high. If I stand about 6 feet tall, and it was a cold area. And inside was a little hot thing bouncing around. So somebody said that was a plasmoid type thing, that they need that to pop into existence. We all got kind of really nauseated and sick when we entered it as the biology of whatever this is, this other dimension that's coming through, doesn't quite work well with our biology, and somehow kind of fucks with us, a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the place where the orbs came pouring out at night that we got on the trail cam. So that was cool. And
well, when you look at
so that's a hot spot. I mean, that's everybody's known it for quite a few years now.
Yeah. Well, when you look at a place like Landers, and specifically right next to it is Giant Rock, and Giant Rock is the largest freestanding boulder in the world, but it's also granite, right? And it's big. We all know how big it is, but that whole hill is granite. That whole hill going out there, that's huge boulders, but it's also covered in quartz crystals. And you go up above Giant Rock on that hill and go to the other side. That's a crystal field, man. It's just covered.
Yeah, you went up there on top and saw the.
Oh yeah, I've done.
Yeah, cool,
I've seen so many things out there, and that's a fascinating area. And so you would often, have to ask yourself: is it the crystals? Is it the granite? Is it the area? Because I have seen every type of UFO out there. I've seen everything.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wish I had an answer for you. I think these places are important. Not every place is there, but I think we have something to do with it too. As humans, that we are, that we, if we're really these kind of spiritual beings that I'm saying we are, and at some deep level. Does any of this occur if we're not there? I doubt it.
Yes, if a tree falls in the woods, right?
Yes.
And also, let me ask you this: if you are somebody that is closed down and not open-minded and not open to what consciousness is, then I would think that ET would know that. I wouldn't care about you. But if you are making a conscious connection with that, then they will reveal themselves.
There seems to be a progression of opening up and having more experiences that make sense. It's been my experience, like what I just told you about the sacred chant.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know, but 25 years ago, I doubt that would occur, or 40 years ago, that wouldn't have occurred.
No, we all thought that was bullshit. That's okay. That's part of learning. But if you, I mean, how many times, I can't tell you, I have no idea how many times this has happened, but I'm with a group of people and somebody says, okay, man, wouldn't it be cool if we saw something? And all of a sudden, pew, right at that moment, right? Like clockwork. Well, that's not chance. that's somebody saying hello.
One would hope.
Yeah. And so if you don't go out there and ask for it, or if you've got somebody that's a bump on a log, this is bullshit. Well, man, don't ruin it for us. Go get in the car. Go somewhere else. Don't ruin it for us. But I think ET sees that. Like we have beacons of light coming off the top of our heads.
I also think that I've heard enough cases where these experiences, these mystical, altered state, sighting type experiences wake people up too. They weren't asking for it. They just happened and it changed them dramatically in a big way. That's what I found when I did my first interview with Bigfoot experiencers. It was transformational for a lot of them.
What do you make of regression and people that go through therapy and then have memories revealed?
And I think it's cool.
Have you had it done?
No. One of the people I interviewed for a near-death experience example. Hey, a little spider just came up by me, talking to me. He had his when he was being born, and he did that kind of regression thing, and he realized that he had the classic, just coming out of the womb. How's that for a metaphor? Coming out of the cave.
Yeah, right.
And he never knew why he had these kind of psi phenomena things. And it all crystallized for him when he did that regression and realized what was going on when he was being born.
Would you do it? Would you do a session?
Well, you do them?
I did one.
Did you? Yeah, why not?
I did one. I didn't know. Let me tell you why I did it. I did two things recently just because I wanted the experience so I could ask the right questions about it later. One of them was regression, and the other one was DMT. So I did DMT twice, and now I understand it. I don't understand it, but I understand the experience. So I'm able to ask questions from a different mindset. And it was the same thing with regression. Ron, I didn't know if I was able to go under. And I did it on camera. All right. So I had my TV crew there, the production crew. You're in the business. You understand. I've got sound and lights and 5 cameras in front of me. And I didn't know if I'd be able to do it in that setting. We emptied the room. All right. Camera set, but everybody was in behind the glass behind me. We had candles lit, and it was nice and everything. But I went under like that. I couldn't believe how fast I went under in seconds. I
guess you're ready for it.
Yeah. Part of it is my therapist, Sarah, who's really, really good, talking to me in her little soft voice. Okay, 10, 9, out, gone, just like that. And I went into the session, and not past life or this or that. I told her, do your thing. I trust you. Whatever happens, happens. And that's what we did. And it was pretty revealing. And I was under for 1 hour and 11 minutes. How's that for synchronicity?
There you go. What's the highlight?
Landers. Yeah.
You went back to Landers where something profound happened.
Yeah. I'm on board a ship in Landers. Yeah.
Maybe you landed on my property.
Yeah. The Landers.
Residual thing there.
I couldn't believe it. And now that memory that was unlocked, and it was very short, like maybe 5 or 10 seconds, but now it's vivid. It's just completely unlocked. I see it.
You can do it right now.
What's that?
You can do it right now. Recall
the memory. Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's right there. Yeah. Yeah, it's right there. And the crazy part about it for me is through all of the shows that I have done where I've talked to people about their experiences and they talk about what was revealed in the session. And Ron, I got to tell you, I would just sit there and go, that sounds like bullshit. But I would listen to everybody, but in my mind, I was like, yeah, okay, all right. And then I do it. Well, now people have to listen to my BS. You know what I mean? And it was crazy. It was like 5 or 10 seconds, and I just appeared. I went from the ground to whoop on this ship, and I'm standing there in this room. It's hard to explain. Couldn't see walls or anything like that. It was black, but I could see like 3, 6, 9, 10, 11 beings were in this room. 3 were sitting here, 3 were sitting there, 3 were sitting here, facing, like sitting over desk or something, control panel, I don't know. And then in the middle of the room were 2 guys, entities, ETs, whatever, standing talking to each other. And so I look around, it's like 5 seconds, and I look around, and these 2 guys in the middle of the room, one of them, they're talking to each other, but one of them turns around and looks at me and goes, "What's up?" And then he goes back, okay, all right. And then the other one kind of looked at me. Then I heard this other guy here talking on like a microphone, and he's talking to somebody, and I could hear the conversation. And I just kind of scan. I look at these guys, and I come back. I look at these guys, and then I'm back on the ground. So it was like 5-10 seconds. That was it.
And were they speaking English, or was it telepathic?
Yep, English. I saw their lips move. I saw their eyes. I saw their shapes. Yeah. And the guy that was talking on the microphone, his back was to me, but I could see him hunched over, and I could hear the conversation. He's talking to somebody. It's like a radio, I guess is the best way to put it, like a radio. And it was this normal, Ron, it was a normal conversation. He said something like, "Hey man, what's up?" And the guy responds back, "Oh, it's good to see you." "Yeah, it's good to see you too." "Yeah, we're here." Okay, cool. It was a conversation like that. What's that?
Question. What was your form in this situation, as you remember?
What was my form? I was only seeing, so I didn't look at my physical.
There was no body to it, no.
Well, okay. You walk into an office. Ron Meyer walks into an office, and he's looking at a bunch of cubicles. This is where you work. And you arrive in the morning, and you just look around to see who's there, and you keep walking. It's a familiar space for you. So you're not necessarily listening to all. That's what it was like for me. I wasn't going after the details. It was just like this friendly atmosphere, and like I said, that guy looked at me and goes, "What's up?" Just like that, man. It was like weird. Just like, yo, yeah, it was trippy, man. It was not.
You're living it.
It was, and I gotta say, they expected me. I guess that's the best way to put it. Nobody was surprised. Nobody was startled. I wasn't startled. Yeah, it was weird. It was weird.
Maybe there's a future yourself behind you right now looking at it.
I don't want, and so I've been asked that, other questions like that. I don't know if I would do it again. And I don't know if I want to know that I've got other experiences that are locked away. I think it's best that I just leave that stuff where it is. I don't want to know.
Okay.
I don't want to know. Yeah, it was exhausting too. When I came out of the session, or whatever you want to call it, when she brings me to, right? 3, 2, 1, pop, you're back. And I opened my eyes. and I sat up. I couldn't believe I sat with my arms on my chest for over an hour. So my fingers were numb, right? And my body was numb. My legs were numb. And so I kind of sat up and got my head together, and everybody comes flooding in. Whoa. And I'm trying to remember what just happened. Anyway, for the rest of the day, and we had to tape TV shows all day the next day, I was physically exhausted. And I thought to myself, how do people do this all the time? It's too much. It's too much to unpack. Mentally, it's heavy. It's revealing, and physically it is. I mean, I was exhausted. I felt like I ran a marathon, and it took me hours to get back to normal. So I don't know if I want to go through that again. I did it a year ago, and I'm not ready.
Well, thanks for telling me. I enjoyed. It was good to hear that.
Oof. It was crazy. And here's the other thing. Is I spoke with a vocabulary that I never use. It was weird. When I went back and watched all the tapes of it, I was like, man, who is that guy? And I speak for a living. Ron, I speak for a living. I do this every single day, right? And if I'm not doing this, I'm taping my TV show. I am talking. And if I'm not doing this or the TV show, I'm at a conference speaking, right? That's what I do all year long, 7 days a week. I'm constantly talking. I know my vocabulary. I know the way that I speak. I know the word. My audience is so used to my choice of words. They know what I'm going to say before I say it. And I appreciate that. In that session, I was a different person speaking. And I was not comfortable with that. I wasn't. It comes from deep inside. I don't know. I have a, I don't know. I'm still trying to resolve it. I'm still unpacking it a year later.
As they say, you're processing it.
Completely.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Yeah. Was it fun? Was it fun? Yes. Was it revealing? Absolutely. But you can only go to Disneyland so many times. It's a once a year thing, I guess. You should do it though. You should do it. With all of your experiences and stuff, you should just do it. Go into it without any expectations or any intention, and just see what the hell happens.
Yeah, I had an experience when I was a young person. I was into astronomy, and I made my own telescope, ground the lens and everything, and built a deck on top of my garage where I'd look at the sky because I love that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And at one point, my only remember is that this big white light came towards me, and that's what I remember right now. And I know after I had an astronomy buddy, I said, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" He said, "No, I didn't see anything." I've always wondered, what was that? Was that my imagination? Because I wanted to see an alien, and I was, as a young person, I was really intrigued by all that stuff.
Now, Ron, we've got your links up for your books. Jesus Had a Near-Death Experience, and everything else, Aliens 2035. Of course, you've got Bradshaw Ranch here, and so many. You're very prolific. So all of your books are up here with the link that we have over at Amazon. Is this the best way to get your stuff?
Absolutely. Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I don't know. They all carry them.
Yeah.
The stream, most of the stuff, is on multiple streaming platforms. Amazon, Bradshaw Ranch is on YouTube TV, which is really great for making money.
Absolutely. And we've got the links up for everything for Ron. And so everybody, please pick up Ron's books and check them out. And Ron, I want to thank you for not only coming on the show, but all of your hard work over the years. And I do look forward to our next conversation, my friend. Thank you so
That was
much.
good. It was been surprising where we went, but it was great fun.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
It was a perfect show. I'm here to learn, Ron. Thank you so much.
You bet. Have a good evening.
You too. Be safe out there. Ron Meyer, everybody. And again, we have his links up. We've got the trailers and the movies up in the chat room. And then all of his books are right there in the link below over on our website and then throughout social media. And with that, I want to remind everybody what is going on around here tomorrow night. Lance Hightower is here. We're going to be talking about Dogman in the USA. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Go Beckley Tepe. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go Beckley Tepe.